When Gomer Pyle married Rock Hudson, The Secret Life of Jim Nabors. What if one whispered line made America believe Gomer Pyle married Hollywood's handsomest leading man? If a rumor could sprint faster than a press release in 1971, then the cost of surviving it was distance, silence, and two men pretending a friendship didn't exist. You know the drawl, you remember the grin, you can still hear the Shazam. But the man behind Mayberry's most lovable mechanic lived a life that never fit in a headline. The rumor was big. The truth was bigger. Let's start where the voice begins. The boy who couldn't run but learned to fill a room. Tiny iron lung of a town. 5 kids. One boy who couldn't sprint with the others because asthma kept his chest on a short leash. If his lungs said no, then his imagination said yes. Movie houses became refuge. 10 cents for a ticket, then 15. He sat under that bright cone of light, with a heart that wanted to be taller. A song could turn 4 walls into a world. If the body wouldn't carry him, then the voice would. At home, he tinkered with anything that made a sound. Piano, clarinet, glee club harmonies. He danced because it felt like slipping gravity. He told jokes because a laugh could sand down the edges of being different in a small town. If you can't blend in, then you learn how to charm. He also figured out early what he could not say out loud. The world stamped labels and locked them away. So he built a sunny, easy manner, the kind that cools a table and lowers the temperature of a room. If truth is dangerous, then humor is armor. New York knows, and the first full breath. A precise address for every dream. New York City. Casting rooms that smelled like coffee and impatience. The accent confused them. An audition ended before the first note. He answered phones at the UN and discovered even his hello sounded like a punchline to the wrong ears. If the room won't hear you, then you find a new room. Money ran out. Patience ran out. Air ran out. He drove west with his sister and a trunk full of hope. Somewhere in New Mexico, he pulled over and cried because for the first time in his life, a full breath landed in his chest. If the South had tightened his lungs, then the West opened them. Los Angeles gave him a day job cutting tape at NBC and a night job at the Horn. The act was a switchblade, country chatter to make you smile, then an operatic baritone that knocked you back in your chair. People didn't know what box to put him in, which was perfect. Boxes had always been the problem. If a talent feels too odd to label, then it might be exactly what a star needs. He polished the timing. Talk simple, sing grand. Let the room laugh at the string bean with the syrupy accent. Then drop a note like a chandelier. Heads tilted up. Glasses paused midair. He wasn't mimicking a style. He was solving a puzzle. How to be taken seriously when your speaking voice invites a chuckle. If the setup is humble, then the payoff feels heroic. Christmas Eve in Mayberry. One night, Andy Griffith slipped into the dark and watched the bit land. Andy was a radar dish for what folks loved. Then Christmas Eve, 1962. America met Gomer Pyle, a filling station helper with a heart you could set your watch by. The character looked simple, but it hit a tightrope. If the audience laughs at the drawl, then the baritone has to make them hush. Gomer's world was kind. Stakes small. Jokes clean. The sort of television that made families set the table early, so they didn't miss the opening theme. Each time the quiet mechanic lifted his chin to sing, you saw something the grease under his nails couldn't cover. That voice was cathedral-big. It didn't come from a clown. It came from a man who had fought for every easy breath and learned to bend a note until a crowd forgot to swallow. The contrast became the engine. People tuned in to smile at the simple fellow and stayed to hear the room-shaking tenor. If a character makes you laugh, then a song can make you loyal. The cost of smiling on a 1960s set. The lot wasn't always gentle. It was the pre-Stonewall 1960s. Career makers took gossip as gospel. Studio guards knew which doors to rattle and which to ignore. Actors kept secrets like rations. If you were found out, then the phone stopped ringing. That was the rule. Jim didn't stage fake dates. He didn't hold hands with starlets for magazine spreads. He kept a small circle, big work, and a private life that stayed private. A child actor from the show later wrote about hearing crew slurs and asking what they meant. Mayberry showed you the best of a small town. Backstage sometimes reminded you why such a picture was necessary. If the front of the house is sweetness, then the back often runs on grit. He learned the careful dance. Never lie, never boast, keep the chat on the work, smile once for the photo, leave before the second flash. If you can't change the room, then you master the exits. USMC. Escape at 8 p.m. Gomer Pyle, U.S.M.C. Marched in 1964 and did the impossible. A military sitcom, while the evening news showed a war. The show kept the world outside the gates. No headlines, no body bags, just a sergeant boiling over and a private with a voice like polished brass. Ratings loved the escape hatch. If America needed a break at 8 p.m., then Gomer handed it over with a salute and a grin. The formula flexed. Gomer's innocence bumped against rules, but his goodness always won the day. And regularly, just when the story needed a lift, the voice returned. Writers aren't fools. They know a note can carry a paragraph. If music can say what dialogue can't, then you let the note speak. If this show was your Thursday night comfort, type comfort so I know who remembers. Variety Hour. Real friends. New muscles to flex. A variety hour gave him room to try everything. Comedy duets, Broadway medleys, easy banter with pros who could return a joke with interest. The hour worked because it felt like a front porch with better lighting. If the sitcom made him a neighbor, then Variety made him a host. He became the person producers trust. Need a premier guest to steady the ship? Call Jim. Need a musical button that sends people to bed smiling? Call Jim. In show business, a good hang is gold. He was gold. Prepared, gracious, bulletproof under pressure. If you make everyone else better, then your calendar stays full. Quick guess. What do you think actually killed gentle, down-home shows in '71? Ratings, ads, or a new image the network wanted? Type one word. If you picked image, then the next chapter nods your way. A rumor with perfect timing and terrible teeth. A name joke. A paper invite. A storm. Somewhere in Southern California, a party card teased a wedding between Rock Hudson and Jim Nabors. The humor rode on a pun. Rock plus Pyle equals Rock Pyle. DJs repeated it. Magazines winked. The more it snowballed, the less anyone cared it wasn't true. There was never a wedding. They were friends who now had to look like strangers. No more casual set drop-bys. No more easy photo ops. If a rumor can't be killed, then you learn to starve it of oxygen. The practical cost of a whisper. The cost wasn't just headlines. It was logistics. You arrive at opposite ends of a building. You leave through side doors. You tell a publicist to decline a harmless cameo because a single frame might feed the machine. You stop calling a friend at dinner time because the restaurant you both love has a photographer who owes a reporter a favor. If a whisper can travel faster than the truth, then you build your days to stay a step ahead of it and lose small joys along the way. And timing made it worse. Executives feared angry letters more than they feared being unfair. If an audience might bolt, then a suit bolts first. If that myth just surprised you, tap like, so the truth outruns the old rumor. And keep listening, because what rescued him next wasn't a headline. It was a friend. The Purge that changed the dial. Executives love trends more than traditions, especially on Mondays. In 1971, CBS cleaned house in what people later called the Rural Purge. Shows with trees in the opening, shot packed up. Jim's Variety Hour, which had been pulling steady numbers, finished its run as the network leaned into city apartments and topical humor. Maybe the rumor didn't cause it. Maybe it didn't help. If television points its compass toward modern, then the southern drawl is the first thing the suits try to sand down. There was an upside, room for sharper social talk and new voices. The downside, gentle shows with a heartland lilt were labeled yesterday. Jim adjusted. He always did. If the wind changes, then you trim the sail. Friends who wouldn't let the spotlight go dark. When the phone slows, friendships ring. Carol Burnett brought him back again and again, calling him her good luck charm. Burt Reynolds kept finding slots where Jim's presence made scenes warmer. The Muppets handed him a painted smile and asked for an aria that still found a way to break your heart. If a network door closes, then friendships open side entrances you never knew existed. Guest spots aren't just rent. They're bridges that keep the audience close. Every few months, you'd be flipping channels, and there he was. Same calm smile, jokes a hair wider than you expected, and that voice lifting a room at the end. If absence can make the heart grow fonder, then surprise returns make it loyal. Indy 500. A ritual in 2 minutes. A race doesn't really begin with engines. It begins with a hush. In 1972, the Indianapolis 500 tried something. Jim Nabors singing Back Home Again in Indiana. First time out, he scribbled the lyrics on his hand in case the roar scrambled his memory. It stuck. Year after year, he took a microphone in a concrete cathedral and turned it into a front porch. If June is for checkered flags, then May belongs to a baritone. The moment. Every single year. The infield is already buzzing. The anthem has floated away. You feel the jet fly over in your bones. Drivers settle into a focus you can't borrow. Vendors clip the tabs on the last soda rings. Then the camera finds him. He doesn't rush. He doesn't milk it. He just starts, and the first phrase lands like a gentle roll of thunder across 300,000 people. A father squeezes a child's shoulder. A woman closes her eyes to meet a memory. Veterans stand a shade straighter. Crew chiefs take one last breath they'll chase all afternoon. The organ in his chest does what engines can't. It stills the place. 2 minutes later, the sound returns like a river finding its banks. If a country is stitched together by little ceremonies, then this was one of the stitches. And Jim was the needle. He treated it like a promise. Show up, sing clean, respect the day. When illness kept him away one year, the hole was obvious. When he returned, the ovation wasn't for a character. It was for a man who had become part of the calendar. If Christmas has hymns, then the Speedway had Jim. Engines start the race. His voice started the day. A phone call that said, "Time is short," late 1993. The body that had betrayed him as a boy played its worst card. His liver failed. Hepatitis B had done quiet damage no smile could hide. Exhaustion. Color gone thin. Legs holding water. A doctor used words like immediate and now. If you've ever watched a secondhand sprint in a waiting room, then you know the feeling. He called his sister. Then he called Carol Burnett. She moved heaven, earth, and a telephone directory. The right team, the right window, the right morning. He went under. He came back with a chance. If a rumor once threatened to take everything, then a friend's insistence gave it back. Recovery wasn't a montage. It was slow mornings, careful food, short walks broken by humble naps. Hawaiʻi helped. Warm air, ocean light, and afternoons where the loudest thing within a mile was a bird testing 2 syllables. If a city once stole his breath, then an island returned it with interest. Hawaiʻi, ordinary joy on purpose. He didn't live like a star on parade. He lived like a neighbor. A Tuesday looked like this. Late coffee on the lanai, a short drive with the window down, a quick debate over which grocery line moves faster. He'd chat about mangoes with someone who only later realized who they'd been talking to. He waved to firefighters and gardeners by name. If fame is loud, then home whispers. Friends tell the same story. The table felt easy. Laughter first, agenda never. You left lighter than you arrived. He wasn't hiding from the world. He was choosing his corner of it. If you spend youth knocking on doors, then the sweetest sound later is your own door closing gently behind you. The real love story. Quiet, steadfast, and finally legal. He met Stan Cadwallader in the mid-70s. A firefighter, solid as a lighthouse. They built a life in Honolulu that didn't require applause to feel complete. Road trips that ended at the same driveway, grateful to repeat them next month. Holidays that were about the roast, not the guest list. For decades, the world got the work and the wave. The circle got the warmth. If the earlier rumor taught them anything, then peace loves a closed door. When the law began to catch up to common sense, they went to Seattle and signed the paper the world had kept from them. No magazine cover needed, no brass band. Just 2 men who'd chosen each other long before anyone else chose to recognize it. The vows didn't change a thing inside the relationship. They changed everything around it. Back in Alabama, the hometown word people used was sweet. Sometimes history turns quieter than you expect. They didn't turn into spokesmen. No tour of talk shows. They woke up, fed the cat, answered the mail, walked the block, and took the day as it came. The love story isn't complicated. It's sturdy. If you're looking for the opposite of a rumor, look at 2 people carrying groceries together. Myth versus memory, and why the truth lasts longer. The fake wedding will always cling to the Jim Nabors scrapbook, because myths are sticky and tidy. But the reality is subtler and better. 2 friends lost the comfort of being seen together because a joke traveled too far. Two other men, Jim and Stan, built a 30-plus-year partnership out of simple rituals and steady presence. If you ask which story has weight, pick the one with grocery lists, not punchlines. Career-wise, he didn't vanish after the variety hour. He became rarer, a welcome guest, and a singer who could calm a stadium. Big stars kept inviting him because he made their shows feel like home. Some performers spend entire careers trying to be beloved. He got there by being exactly who he was, open, earnest, and a little amazed the world kept saying yes. What the rumor really taught. Maybe the useful part of the Rock Pyle saga is what it reveals about the times. Back then, a rumor wasn't just noise. It was a lever. Pull it once, and a schedule quietly changes. Pull it twice, and two men stop being seen together. But the joke didn't write the last chapter. The last chapter belongs to a man who sang a state song like a prayer and married the person he'd been living his life with since the Ford administration. If gossip started loud, then truth finished steady. It teaches something about craft, too. For all the noise, the work stayed clean. He hit his marks. He sang in tune. He showed up early and left thanks behind. In the long run, that's what carries a reputation past the tabloid bin. If you can be counted on, then you get counted in. He sang one last time at the Speedway and waved the way he always did. He spent his final years in the place that taught him to breathe. He left in his sleep at 87. If you ever wondered what lasts longer than a rumor, listen to a crowd of grown men fight back tears when one voice finishes a simple song about home. That's what lasts. You don't have to pick between the character and the man. Keep both. Keep the shy grin and the gull-y. Keep the tenor floating over a sea of baseball caps. Keep the afternoon you were 12 and laughed so hard at a barracks mix-up you spilled your soda. Keep the knowledge that the fellow who brought you that laughter had real friends, a real love, and the kind of courage that looks quiet until you look closely. Your tuner. Lock this in the comments. Where did you first hear the rumor? And what part of the real story surprised you most? If you guessed party invite, take a bow. If you thought a tabloid gave it wings, you're not wrong. If you picked radio, remember how morning DJs could turn anything into truth for 3 traffic reports long. First time you heard him sing, TV, vinyl, or Indy. Type one word. TV, record, or Indy. If the memory still gives you goosebumps, say so. We'll see who calls it early. Closing note. If you felt like you learned something, and the myth finally has a proper shelf, tap like so. This story keeps living. And if you want more deep dives where the headline gets debunked and the human being steps into focus, subscribe. We'll keep telling the stories behind the smiles.